La pendule fait tic-tac, tic-tic. Les oiseaux du lac pic-pac, pic-pic. Glou, glou, glou font tous les dindons. Et la jolie cloche ding-ding-dong. Mais boum, quand notre cœur fait boum, tout avec lui dit boum. Et c'est l'amour qui s'éveille.
Willkommen! Hello everybody, welcome to episode 13 of Tintincast.
Oh, unlucky for some.
Yeah, but not you, because your birthday's on the 13th. But it's the 15th book we'll be doing because we've done two double billers. This is the, and we've got a nubble. We've got a nubble as well, definitely a nubble. We've got another double bill coming up, the episode after this one. But we've got a standalone this week, which is Land of Black Gold.
Or Hergé's midlife crisis book, as I like to call it.
And this one has a very interesting lead up, doesn't it? Because it spans quite a few years from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. So Marcus, would you like to fill us in as to why that was?
Yes, well, let's start in 1948, where we left Hergé last week. So around that time, Hergé was exploring the idea of getting out of Belgium after the war, which had caused him so many problems, which you can read about in our last episode. He actually made approaches to both Argentina and Brazil to go and live there. A lot of Nazis and those accused of collaborating during the war had fled to those countries. He told friends that he had in Argentina that he was desperate to leave poor old broken down Europe for good. But whatever happened, the move never happened. And Hergé was stuck in Europe, where he started to embark on a series of, let's call them misadventures. He buys a fancy sports car and sets off to Switzerland with Germaine, his wife, and the daughter of a friend with whom Hergé starts to have an affair. And it doesn't seem to be the first time that Hergé's been unfaithful to Germaine, but now he seems to be having these mood swings, and sort of one minute he's feeling guilty and the next minute he's being particularly cruel to Germaine. And she becomes understandably exasperated with this increasingly childish husband of hers. And then the next minute, Hergé will be writing to her asking for her forgiveness and telling her how much she appreciates all that she's done for him. So that's all a bit up and down. A close mutual friend of both of them, Marcel Dehaye, advises them to separate. And whilst Hergé is staying in Switzerland, he's going to Switzerland quite a lot at the moment, staying away from Germaine, he's very far from clear what he wants to do. And he's also procrastinating about getting back into Tintin adventures and writing the next book. By summer 1948, his boss at Tintin magazine, Raymond Leblanc, was also getting very frustrated, waiting for Hergé to return to his obligations with the magazine. I think at this point, Leblanc is wishing the magazine could do without Hergé. And also Hergé has just embarked on another affair with a married woman this time. Anyway, Germaine and Hergé's friend suggested reviving the Land of Black Gold story that had been interrupted back in 1940, when Belgium was invaded by Germany. The first half of this story had already appeared in Le Petit Vingtième between 1939 and 1940. And the idea was Hergé was quite overworked. He was going through all these personal crises, and they felt that this would mean less work for him, and he could, get back on top of his anxiety, his depression, his womanizing, all of this stuff. So the Land of Black Gold, this second version of Land of Black Gold, starts being serialized in Tintin magazine on the 16th of September, 1948.
So that's he didn't like doing repairs, as he called them, did he? It was a repair job.
Yeah. So, apparently only pages 1 to 6 and 19 to 27 in the book remain from the original 1939-1940 version. So there's this 1948-49 version, which we're sort of makes up most of what we're talking about today. And this was an overhaul of the original adventure. Haddock and Calculus seem to be crowbarred in because these were characters who'd been introduced after that first Le Petit Vingtième serialization. In the 1948-49 version, the desert scenes were all set in British-occupied Palestine, because Hergé was wanting to bring things up to date, and he was particularly critical of colonialism, of course. So that's where he set it. But come the third version, Methuen, I think, asked for a third version in 1971. And that then sets it away from any discernible place. It's moved to this unspecified fictitious setting in Kemed, I think it is. So there's this other final version in 1971 that gets made.
Yeah, so the version I've got is 1975, which is the second reprint.
Yeah, because the first English version, I think, was 1972 by Methuen. So that's an early edition.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest ones I've got, actually. I've got a couple of ones that are falling apart from the 70s, 60s, and 70s, I think. The rest of mine I bought them all in the 80s. So that's when I was really getting into Tintin. I think I had half a dozen of them. I was like, right, I'm going to start collecting them all. So I saved up on pocket money at the time and got them. Land of Black Gold is one of those that I didn't know very well. And while I was rereading it, I realized I really didn't know it very well because it felt quite new to me. And the fact that it's got the Thompsons on the cover made me think this is going to be great, because I do remember it having the Thompsons in it a lot. And that's what the main pickup I had from this, which I enjoyed a lot, actually. I thought it was a really entertaining one, is that the Thompsons are in it a lot, which is fantastic.
They totally steal the show, don't they? And in the original version back in 1939-40, they would be quite new characters to Tintin, and they were very popular.
Yeah, so it starts with a mystery. Why is everyone's gasoline exploding?
Boom.
Boom, boom. And I love the fact that the Thompsons, having heard an advert on the radio for, what is it? It's an auto cart. Boom, one day your car goes boom.
It's the old Charles Trenet song which apparently was really popular in 1938. So I think that was sort of Hergé directly lifting that for the book.
Yeah, that sets it, doesn't it? And one day your car goes boom, boom, and it explodes. So instantly the Thompsons think Autocart are this corrupt company who are blowing up everyone's cars so they can get loads of money for repairs. And Tintin's kind of like, I mean, that's an interesting theory. But obviously it sets Tintin off on his own mystery. And again, the Thompsons, they just, they try and get undercover at Autocart, and they disguise themselves as mechanics, and they ended up crashing the breakdown truck.
Plenty of costume action as usual.
Yeah, with their silly costumes on, they blow up a tire while they're trying to eavesdrop as to what's happening. They have some amazing moments. And then, when they get onto the ship, a few pages in, they go to the captain and say, where's our cabin? And he throws them in the hold and just goes, get to work. You're the crew. You're not guests. So the Thompsons, in the first 10 pages, the Thompsons have had some classic moments, I think. And then again, the adventure it kicks off. You're on a boat, you're going somewhere, there's thugs. It's very reminiscent of Crab with the Golden Claws, I think.
Yes, and we're going towards the desert again, aren't we, with this?
The desert, yeah, and you've got a voyage to the desert. And the desert scenes in this are absolutely fantastic, actually. I think they're brilliantly rendered. The sandstorm sequence is brilliant.
Yes.
The way Hergé manages to portray this engulfing sandstorm that Tintin gets lost in, and then the Thompsons following their own tracks around. It's really good. It's very good. It's a very strong one. I would say probably it's not a classic. It feels like a side adventure because it was created over such a long period of time.
I think, it feels much more like it was a 1930s book. So it feels much more like those early Tintin adventures, which were more political, which he is more of a reporter type character than the investigator that he becomes later on. It feels quite like King Ottokar's Scepter, I thought, with some of the politics involved. I find it, even now, quite difficult and heavy going, this book, because there's a lot of text. It feels a little bit disjointed, probably because it was written over these 3 different periods and then stuck back together. So I find it a little bit difficult, but it's beautifully drawn again.
Yeah, and I love the fact that he'd just done Black Island, hadn't he? So he brought Dr. Muller back in as a villain.
And he could, now that the war was over, the German villain, that would be fine again.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas before he'd have to stop blaming the Germans for everything because the Nazis were in charge. So Germans were obviously. But what I think I really like the character of Ben Kalish Izab, isn't it? Mohammed Ben Kalish Izab. He's he's a sheikh who loves his son, and his son is the most memorable character in this book because he is a little
rather like Hergé at the time. I mean, I think we talked about Hergé being more identifying himself with Tintin when he was in his younger years, this enthusiastic young kind of go-getter, keen to please, and then identifying more with Haddock during the war years, being a bit more kind of world weary. But yeah, Abdullah, the child who's sort of playing up, that feels more like Hergé at the moment.
It does, yeah. The bratty Sheikh Abdullah, isn't it, his son? And he is absolute little git. I mean, he really isn't. And the Sheikh loves him. He loves his son, and he's, where's my precious jewel? Where's my beautiful boy? But but he's an absolute little bugger.
Hergé likes throwing in these characters that are sort of sent to try Tintin, just these incendiary characters who are going to derail whatever Tintin's trying to do at any particular time.
And he does. I mean, he annoys everybody. He annoys Haddock, obviously. Very much at the end. He annoys Tintin, though, and Tintin's quite unflappable usually, because Abdullah is such a little git. He's put poppers everywhere and just plays tricks. And then when Tintin's trying to save him, he refuses to be saved. That kind of thing. And you can see why Tintin's getting exasperated by him. But I mean, that's quite a nice little side adventure, is rescue the son of the sheikh, and it's quite well done and it is quite memorable. And I love the fact that he bumps back into Oliveira de Figueira as well.
Yes, our Portuguese friend,
the guy who could sell ice to Inuits. He's the best salesman in the world. So again, it's nice to see a few recurring characters, bit part characters, really coming back from earlier adventures, because it does remind you that 10 years has passed, 8 years has passed. The war is over, and we're getting back into non-war era Tintin. But actually, at the beginning, he's worried about the war, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the whole book is sort of set on the brink of war in Europe, isn't it? And I suppose that would have been the situation back in 1939 when he started writing the book.
Yeah, I do love that. Again, there's some brilliant comedy in this one. I mean, you got the Thompsons all the way through. Their comedy's brilliant. Right up to the end where they take those pills that make them burp bubbles and grow like on the cover and grow big bushy green beards. But I love the fact that there's a running gag with Abdullah's sneezing powder, his itching powder, because it seems to be just he's an annoying little kid. But because of that, there are some memorable moments where Muller and Tintin are beating each other up and they keep sneezing. And, there's one bit where Abdullah puts itching powder down Muller's shirt while he's driving and causes him to crash the car. So it's this great big plot thing that everyone's sneezing and itching and falling about. And it's very slapstick, but it's like, even when they're looking for Abdullah, his legacy is still very strong because everyone's falling victim to his pranks.
It's sort of a precursor to Home Alone or something.
It is a bit, yeah. He's like that or Problem Child. He's definitely a John Hughes character. Like he pops a bag and causes a shootout kind of thing. Exploding cigars and all that kind of stuff. And even at the end of the book, he gets the last panel. You got Abdullah walking away and he's painted end on the wall and he's going, there. So he definitely leaves his mark on this book. So it's got some really memorable moments in it, I think. It just about hangs together for a story that's a little bit of a retread of a lot of other earlier Tintin books, really. And I think because like 4 or 5 books have come and gone since this one, before this one comes out, they've kind of surpassed this already before it happens. So I think Hergé came back and finished it off and went, I don't really want to do this, but I'll do it. And I think didn't his wife advise him to do it because she said it might be a little bit less traumatic than starting a new one.
Yeah, I mean, Hergé was all over the place at this stage. I don't know if he could have started a whole brand new adventure, and it's slightly clumsily top and tailed with these Haddock is sort of stuffed in at the very start, but he gets a phone call and he has to go off on his boat. And then at the end of the book, Tintin's in a bit of distress, and Haddock just suddenly arrives. It's not really explained how or why he arrives. Haddock's trying to explain throughout the rest of the book, but never gets the opportunity, which is a bit of a get out for Hergé.
It is, although do you know what I thought was genius about that is the way they have, I think it's Figuera spends so many pages and you keep dropping in on him and he's telling this big story about how he got there and everything, and then all these people, loads of Arabs around him going, oh really, oh that's amazing, making him laugh, making him cry, and he's still explaining like 4 or 5 pages later, it cuts back to him what his story is, and then you could counterpart that with Haddock, who just goes, well, it's a really difficult to explain story, Tintin. He goes, right, well, never mind, don't bother. Which is a good way of getting out of the Haddock. Why is Haddock there? Because he's there. we you know.
And calculus does get pulled into it as well, because he has to analyze these tablets that the Thompsons have swallowed that seems to be making the petroleum blow up. Yeah,
and I thought Land of Black Gold was linked with Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon. The next 2 books, next episode, obviously, because calculus is in it, and also because of the Thompsons in Destination Moon keep burping, and their beards keep growing because it's a holdover from this, and that's I remembered that. Like, oh, right, okay, so it's sort of linked, but it kind of isn't. The only other thing that links it to Destination Moon is that calculus, he's become more of a scientist, a respected scientist now. And he's worked out, he's not a crackpot anymore. So that by the time you get to Destination Moon and calculus has got a rocket that goes to the moon, you're like, okay, he spent the last few years becoming a genius. That's, I buy it, yeah.
So should we give it a score on the 7 crystal balls scale? What do you think?
Yeah, I give this one a 5 because it's a slight step down from the previous week's double bills that we've done, and I know it's not as good as the 2 that are to come, but it's got a lot in it that's entertaining. It's very memorable, it's funny, and it's just there's a lot about it to recommend. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I'm going to give it a 5 as well. I thought it was a little bit disjointed at times, slightly confused, a little bit hard to follow the plot, and there seemed to be a lot of kind of Basil exposition stuff in the middle. So yeah, 5 sounds fair to me.
Good. So what state is Hergé in by the time this gets published?
Well,
I'm worried about him now, Marcus.
I know, I'm kind of exasperated with him, but also slightly a bit worried about him as well. So the Land of Black Gold, the serialization in Tintin magazine, comes to an end on the 23rd of February 1950. We're into the 50s. It was published in French in book format in 1950 by Casterman, and then the remade version was published in 1971, also by Casterman, and then translated into English and published in 1972 by Methuen. So during the making of this particular adventure, Hergé was off ill a lot. He was AWOL a lot. His relationship with Germaine was on and off a lot. Tintin magazine showed their feelings about the situation with a cover on one of their issues, which depicted Hergé in handcuffs being dragged back to work by his characters, and Thompson saying to Hergé, "Enough laughter, my boy, back to work." And Hergé, he's sort of playing this role of a tragic Casanova or something, but his friends are increasingly telling him to get a grip. And Jacobs, his long-term collaborator, writes to him and says, "Wake up, old fellow, you've been spineless for long enough. You need to shake yourself and get back on the horse. You're responsible for the life of a newspaper that has a great deal of influence over young people. What more can you want for the love of God? You've fame, wealth, and youth." So will Hergé come to his senses? Is it the end for Tintin and Snowy? Spoiler alert, it's not. We've another 7 episodes to go. But we'll have to wait till next week to find out.
Yeah. Is this the end for Tintin and Snowy? Yeah. And so, yeah, it is an interesting drawing to a conclusion of the war years. We obviously know what he did before the war, how the war affected him, stopping this book and then starting it again. But yeah, Hergé's behavior is becoming increasingly erratic, and he is behaving like a bit of a playboy, isn't he? He's like, at this point, he's famous, he's rich, he's got a few women on the go, he's globe-trotting. I think he's being a little bit, he's exerting, either he's running away from his problems or he's exerting himself a little bit and sort of going, this is what he's having a midlife crisis quite early on, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's the midlife crisis. Plus, I think it's the whole his name has been so tarnished during the accusations of collaboration with the Nazis and things like this. Obviously, a lot of his friends have gone to prison. Some of them have been executed because of their collaboration. So it just feels like he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I want now. I can't. My reputation can't get much worse.
And also, I mean, he's probably feeling very fragile. It sounds quite, not that I know what was happening, but he could have been having a breakdown for all we know. He could have been like, I cannot deal with any more reality. I mean, especially, the war affected people in different ways. If he was arrested and getting into all kinds of trouble, I mean, talk about a heavy 6 years. Everyone will have been wanting to, and the 50s came along, and the 50s were quite austere, obviously, because no one had anything left after the war. The 50s is an interesting decade because then obviously came the Cold War and the space race.
Oh, that's topical.
Yes, we will segue into next episode's double bill. It's another double bill.
Good stuff. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, me too. I love reading those books. Those two, they're brilliant. But yeah, thanks for joining us this week. And again, thanks for all the questions and the tweets and the emails and the comments on YouTube and stuff. It's really nice to know everyone's watching, and also that you're all as keen on Tintin and Hergé as we are, because it is a fascinating world. I think, someone asked, it was Adam actually, Adam Greenwood, he asked on Twitter what are good reference books for Tintin, and the ones we've been using, I think, are the best ones that we could recommend.
Yes, there's this great one, Tintin, The Art of Hergé, which is all about, obviously, the cartoon artwork. And I've been reading a couple of great books on, let me get my Kindle out. So there is Tintin, Hergé and His Creation by Harry Thompson, no relation of the Thompson twins. And The Real Hergé by Sean Lai, I think that is. So yeah, those are two great reference books.
Is that Thompson with a P, as in pseudonym?
As in pterodactyl, yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for a special double bill, which we'll say nothing about.
See you next time.
Bye.